First of all, this call is being recorded, so if you decided to speak on stage, then just know that your voice might feature in our video later on. And yeah, we have a rough agenda for this call, and we will start with some updates from our side, and then we will introduce you to our community member of the month. And after that, the stage is pretty much open. We have already received a few questions in the stage questions channel, which of course we will address. So if during the call you have questions you want us to pick up, feel free to put them in the stage questions channel or raise your hand and join us on stage. We're going to do our best to address as many as we can during this call. And if we don't get to you, then even if you raise your hands and we couldn't get you on stage, feel free to still drop that questions into the questions channel and we will get back to you later. And yeah, without further ado, let's get started. With me on stage, I have Luke and Jasmine from the community team. And yeah, let's maybe start with what we've been up to this month. Luke, what have you been working on this month? Or well, let's say last month because May just started.
I was going to say, not much. Well, a lot's happened in 5 days, to be fair. But the last month has been very much continuing to grow the community. We've seen massive growth in no count, particularly in Asia, which is great to see. The no count, it's well over 70,000 and continues to grow day on day. And yeah, in terms of countries, we're in over 180 countries now as well, which is brilliant. And actually, I was going to announce a couple of things today, if that's okay. Do you want me to do that now, Naomi, or do you want Jazz to go and see what she's been up to?
I think we will go with Jazz first, and then we move into the serious update stuff.
Cool. Alrighty.
All right. What about you, Jasmine?
Hi, everyone. Yeah, so this month I've just been continuing to work on creating more content for our docs. It's great to see that so many of you have already started to read those. And we've had really good feedback so far, so that's really, really great. And then also been doing some internal testing, the new version of Minima, which is also very exciting and can't wait to get that out there. And then we will be having a new incentive website coming soon, so I've just also been helping out with that.
Yeah, great. Things are moving in the right direction. And on that note, Luke, what updates can you share with us?
We've got a couple of big ones actually. So the first one's already been popped up in the announcement channel earlier on, but I thought I'd go over it with everyone whilst we're on the call. So we have obviously the node count that we put out that I mentioned earlier on. There's in fact 2 figures we track in relation to node count. The first is installed and the second is active. Now, the installed one is the one that we currently see in the chart. It's at around 80,000 at the moment. But at any one time, the active nodes, which are the ones which are actually on the network at any given time, they fluctuate around 30% lower. So sort of, let's say around 50,000. And there's a reason for that, in that in any given network, you're going to see some up and down on any given nodes, depending on external factors, such as, I don't know, phones out of range, people turn their phone off at night, airline mode, that sort of thing. So what we're going to start doing going forward, just to give that sort of maximum clarity, I suppose, openness in what we're doing, so we're going to publish both of those. Numbers are going to be, those numbers will be updated each day, and you'll see them listed as active and, like I said, installed. And you can actually see the nodes active at any given point in time by going into your own node, running the status command, and then looking for the devices figure that you'll actually see in the information that's returned. So that's the one update for you all. And the other one, which is going to be brand new information to all of you, I'm sure you'll be very excited to hear, is what's going to be happening with the incentive reward program post TGE. So what we're going to be doing is allowing you to make a choice from TGE onwards at any given point in time to either take the coins that you've got through running your node, and take them at that point in time, and then they're yours to do with as you wish, or you can choose to leave them within the program, and we will continue to reward you for running your node out to, or at least into 2024. And what we're going to do is we're going to have a halving of the reward every 3 months. And then for you as an individual, you have this choice that you can make at any point in time. So you can leave leave your incentive rewards where they are and continue to earn, or you can withdraw them at any point and take what you have. There won't be any half in, half out. It's either you leave them in or you take them. But we think this is a great way for you to continue to reward you for running your node way into the future.
Yeah, I think that's quite a big one. A lot of people have been asking about it, and obviously because GGE is getting closer. And then there was another update. Maybe, Jasmine, you can say a few things. We have decided on a name for the layer 2.
Yeah. So we do have a name now for our layer 2, and that is Omnia. And Omnia means all or everything in Latin. And I'll just explain a bit about Omnia and work, and then that will kind of help you understand the name as well. So just to kind of give you a bit of background information again about the differences between layer 1 and layer 2. So layer 1, as everyone knows here, I'm sure, is the blockchain base layer, where all transactions need to be processed by every single node in the network. So it's relatively slow and it doesn't scale. And when you see that layer 1s claim to be scalable and have high transaction throughput, they tend to lack decentralization and therefore security, because to get this high transaction throughput, they can only have a small number of nodes, because they can have fast block times and large blocks. But for all of those transactions to get processed through the network, they can only have small nodes. And so obviously at Minima, we don't sacrifice decentralization or anything, not even scalability. So our approach to scalability is layer 2. And just to kind of differentiate between different scaling solutions, we have layer 2, true layer 2 solutions, and then you have other scaling solutions such as side chains. And the difference between those would be that an actual layer 2 solution comes with the same underlying security as the layer 1, as the blockchain. So you get all of the guarantees from the blockchain on your layer 2. Whereas with the sidechain, they can have different security and different consensus mechanisms. So for example, you could have a sidechain on a proof of work blockchain, which actually uses a proof of stake consensus mechanism. And therefore the security of that sidechain would not inherit the same security as the underlying blockchain. So with Minima, what we are building internally, and also just to mention that these sidechains are possible to be built on top of Minima, but internally we are focusing on building our layer 2 solution, Omnia. And so to kind of give you an analogy, Omnia is similar to Bitcoin's Lightning network, but it's more advanced. And so essentially, Lightning Network is a protocol that allows you to update and exchange smart contracts between a subset of participants in the network. And so all of this happens off-chain. And because only a subset of users in the network are involved in these transactions, it's far more scalable, it's faster, it's cheaper, and it really kind of is a true scaling solution that comes with the security of the Minima blockchain itself. And
Sure, go on. No, I just wanted to say that makes sense with the name. It's everything. You can do anything and everything you want, I guess.
Exactly, yes. As much as I know you'd like it to believe that it's an anagram.
Well, it is an anagram of my name. even though that might have not been the inspiration for the name. Yeah, I think
Yeah,
we are looking forward for it to come to fruition so that people can actually play around with it.
yeah, and I think the one thing to kind of realize here is that when on Bitcoin, to run a Lightning node, you need to be running a full node, which we all know is not that easy on Bitcoin. And I think you've gone through that process yourself, Naomi, and you can talk about that if you like.
Yeah, it took 2.5 days to synchronize, so that was fun.
Yeah. So with Bitcoin, if you want to use Lightning, either you run a full Bitcoin node or you just use a wallet, which then talks to a cloud server to kind of do all of the watching out for transactions on chain, etc. And obviously that then comes with its own security issues. You're again relying on a third party. But with Minima, because everyone automatically is running a full node from their phone, everyone is automatically an Omnia node. So there's nothing additional that anyone needs to do um, to join the Omnia layer. It's already there in the phone.
Yeah, that's quite exciting, and I can definitely agree that running a Lightning node is not as easy as it seems. Well, it probably doesn't even seem easy to non-Bitcoiners, but yeah, it's quite a process, especially if you wanted to do it in a way that is fully non-custodial, where you actually control the entire infrastructure you're running things on. Um, but it's a good thing to try to know how much harder other things are in comparison to Minima. Um, yeah. Okay, well then I think we're going to move on, and we have a community member of the month, who I'm gonna get on stage now. And unfortunately,
Sorry, I keep trying to put
oh,
my hand up, but I don't get that option because I think I'm
no,
an
because
admin.
you're a team member. Yeah,
Oh, sorry.
that's all
Would it
right.
be all right if I just said a very quick point on Omnia and then I'll sit down again?
Okay,
How
maximum
quick?
3 minutes, or I will cut
Sorry,
you out.
it's a very interesting point. And so, what I wanted to say about layer two scaling solutions is that we see a lot of them out there. And currently the ETH fad is to have your ZK rollups, your side chains, etc., etc. But what's very interesting to see here is that as those layer two solutions get used more and more, the fees go up. This is because they're not they're not actually layer two, they are layer two solutions, but I wouldn't call them scalability solutions. They're throughput solutions. And what you find is that they have exactly the same flaws that the original blockchain had. And so as traffic increases, congestion increases, fees increase. Whereas when you look at the Lightning Network on Bitcoin, which is a truly remarkable piece of technology, as that has grown, the fees go down. So what happens on Lightning, a true layer two scalability solution, is that you find as liquidity increases, this is exactly what you should see, as the liquidity of the value transfer increases on the Lightning Network, the fees you pay actually go down. So as it grows bigger, as more people use it, it actually becomes better. It actually becomes cheaper to use. When you objectively look at all the solutions that are out there, this is why we chose, the Lightning Network as the template for Minima's scaling solution, because it's the only one that works. It's the only one that actually delivers decentralized, scalable transactions that can handle, literally there is no limit to the number of transactions that can occur on the Lightning Network. None of that touches the blockchain. All that actually happens is that you're swapping contracts between users, and the speed at which you can swap contracts is determined purely by the hardware and the network connection between me and the user who are transacting. So this is why we went for Lightning. And the one big difference between Minima and Bitcoin is that Minima Minima stands on the shoulders of giants. And there are some wonderful pieces of technology that simply haven't been integrated into Bitcoin's Lightning Network because they're, ossifying. And if anybody's seeing all the hullabaloo about bit 119 at the moment in OCTV, it's very hard to get anything to change on Bitcoin, but we have the benefit of hindsight, so we get to use L2. which is a protocol that was invented after the original Lightning Network. And what's really nice about that is that it allows you a far simpler, far more powerful way of operating off-chain. And so when you think of the Lightning Network, it's basically a payments network. Yeah, you can send value from A to B. Brilliant. It's decentralized, it's scalable, and it works, and that's fine. But what Omnia does, which is different, is that it actually allows you to do any sequence of transactions with any smart contracts between a subset of users and a subset of tokens. So for instance, if you had written a smart contract that allowed you to play poker on layer 1, super slow, super clunky, yeah, you're never going to get this to scale with thousands of users. You write it to operate on layer 1, and then you can simply lift that protocol off chain and run it, and you lift that protocol off the chain, and then you can run it as fast as you like between you and the parties involved. And Omnia gives us this ability. So it's really a very, very exciting piece of technology, which has been, studied and designed. Christian Decker, an uber Bitcoin man, wrote the paper. It's a fascinating way to operate, and I really think that this is the way to go. We don't want to be just putting other blockchains on top of blockchains. All we see is that they get blocked up, and now you're going to be seeing blockchains on top of blockchains on top of blockchains. And the truth is that the problem with that is that you always inherit the security assumptions of all the parent chains. And so the ZK rollups and all the other chains that we see branching off Ethereum, and now we're seeing Starknet, and we're seeing a whole load of chains on top of Starknet. Every time you go up, your security becomes worse and worse. And the truth is, you're never, ever going to get to go down to layer 1. It's now almost impossible for anybody to actually transact on Ethereum. You can only, to get off Ethereum costs you thousands of dollars as well. So
Yes.
that's not going to work for me.
That won't happen on Omnia, is that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it. Okay. Thanks.
Well,
Sorry.
thank you very much. No
All right.
worries.
Bye.
Okay, moving on. We have our community member of the month on stage with us, and unfortunately he's caught in the countryside of Kazakhstan, I think, and won't be able to speak to us. We tried it earlier and the connection was just horrific. However, I did get some answers from him in advance, and we will also have him join us during our next community call, so he can also join the discussion. And yeah, our community member of the month is Kit. Congratulations. It's been tremendously helpful getting your minimalists set up with their nodes and answer any questions they had. And we had several people from the community actually reach out and tell us how helpful he's been. So we thought, yeah, this was a good way to show our appreciation. And I'm just going to read the questions we have prepared and then his answers. And yeah, apologies again, the network connection sometimes doesn't work, and so far blockchain doesn't fix it, but you never know. So yeah, the question is, could you quickly introduce yourself and tell us how you found out about Minima? And yeah, Kit said that his name is Kit. He is from Kazakhstan, and he learned about the Minima project from his brother, who sent him a link to the Discord and mentioned that it was a very interesting project. And then he joined our server, found the white paper, read the white paper, and became very interested in it. And that's why he is here, and he's ready to help us develop in the future. And he would even be interested in working on something. And then on his journey in the crypto and blockchain space, he also shared that he actually was fairly early. So he learned about crypto and blockchain already in 2017, which was the funny times when everybody was creating ICOs for the most useless things like parking coin or private jet coin. And then he started to study it. And since then, it actually was when he was also graduating from university, and he got a job and couldn't devote a lot of time to researching and learning more about crypto. But yeah, more recently he learned about nodes and blockchain nodes in particular, and then dove into how can you run them, what they are used to. And since he used to work with Linux before, that he didn't encounter any problems running other nodes and understanding how to do it. And yeah, it's become like a hobby, which he devotes a lot of time to now. And yeah, on the question what excites him most about Minima is that if we are talking about decentralization, a lightweight blockchain, I would probably implement it in the format of a social network. So that's what he would like to build or see built, where people can share and communicate freely. And in that way, he thinks that it would be super cool to tie all other applications into this network. So even the games that were discussed at the last AMA. He'd also be ready to work on something together with us because now he has time to devote to, yeah, helping us and grow Minima. And yeah, I think it's pretty amazing. And I do think that there's a lot of room for including apps in social networks because we've already seen it back then with Facebook, right? Where suddenly everybody would send you requests to play whatever farming game. And I think there's certainly a room for that in crypto as well. Yeah, Kit, it's a shame that you can't be speaking with us today, but definitely next time you're on stage with us, hopefully not in the countryside where there's no good connection. Thanks so much, and we're definitely looking forward to working with you on any projects on Minima. I think the others will just echo that sentiment. And yeah, thanks so much, and congratulations again. And yeah,
Yeah, I'd also just like to credit Kit for my awesome profile picture.
oh yeah, right. That's hopefully still going to be an NFT, right? The Minima
Okay.
Ice NFT collection.
Yeah.
All right, moving on. We have some topics already prepared, and then we will pick up some of the questions. And anybody who wants to join us on stage, feel free to raise your hand at any point. So I think the last weekend in crypto has been quite exciting. Well, for better or worse, I guess. But what are trends or events you've noticed or kept an eye on this last few weeks? Let's start with Luke.
So I think the big one, which I know we're going to go into more detail about later, has to be the trend around free speech and decentralization, and it's coming out in the mainstream media. I'm hearing it all over the place, mainly geared around obviously Elon Musk looking at buying or trying to finalize buying Twitter. Yeah. So that's been interesting to see that kind of discussion finding its way out into the mainstream discussion. It'd be interesting to see how that goes down ultimately, because I know that's not finalised yet. But even today, I saw some news about, I think it was Binance committing $500 million towards the fund for Elon to buy Twitter. So yeah, a lot of interesting stuff happening there.
What about you, Jasmine? Any events you thought worth noting?
For me personally, it's been that I've seen a lot of new KYC requirements coming out for exchanges, and they're asking for, proof of address. I need to send a photograph of my bills. I need to send a photograph of my passport, of my driver's license. I've found that I'm blocked out of exchange or even withdrawing my own funds until I've this situation. And I realised that I've fell into the convenience trap of using centralized exchanges, and it's kind of to bite me now because I have to give over all of my personal data. And I understand that they need to comply, with regulation and all of that, but I have realised that using centralized exchanges is kind of completely missing the point of cryptocurrency and just be using a bank. And so be moving away from centralized exchanges as much as possible and just waiting for Minima.
Yeah, I think the difficulty is that it's really hard to get into crypto. I think the biggest problem still, for one of the biggest, is still the on-ramp, because how are you going to get crypto with fiat if
Exactly.
not through a centralized exchange? Or you use one of those peer-to-peer platforms where you might get scammed. So yeah, there isn't
Yeah.
really that many great options yet. And they are also stopping the Bitcoin ATM, so which is obviously, of course, regulation happening, but just making it even harder for people to onboard. And I guess one of the easiest ways is always to earn in crypto. Then you don't ever have to think about how I get crypto. But that is obviously not an option for many people.
It is, and it's a tricky one, isn't it? Right? Because if you want to bring people into crypto, you have to overcome that trust barrier. And for a lot of people, the KYC, the AMA stuff that the centralized exchanges make you go through, that gives them that security. Not everyone is like us, who want that full anonymity. So I think there's always going to be a place for both. But I agree, Jasmine, that increasingly you seem to be getting KYC'd for things that you don't necessarily need to be KYC'd for. And that's the thing that is worrying me a bit.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you are also blocked from transferring your funds to certain other platforms on centralized exchanges, which is obviously, I mean, sometimes the intent is a good one, right? Stopping you from giving money to scammers, but it's always a slippery slope. Yeah, I think also noteworthy events last week were obviously the gas wars on Ethereum, where people ended up paying, I don't know, would you have paid $9,000 just to get a transaction through? I mean, I wish I had this money, but I don't think it's a good look for blockchain if it becomes so expensive for people to transact on it. And then obviously Solana went down again. But yeah, I think it's just going to show that these systems are all a bit more vulnerable than they would like to make it seem.
Yeah, I mean, on one hand, it's great that Ethereum has all of this demand for block space, but really all of these transactions should be happening off chain on layer 2 rather than layer 1.
Yeah, I mean, the layer 2 definitely is going to be, I think, the place where most of us will interact, especially because there's this idea of induced demand, right? Even if you start creating, and I think this is what all of these layer ones are nowadays seeing is, okay, you provide a layer 1, it has a lot of throughput. Great, people are going to come because stuff is cheap and they can earn high yields. And then eventually your block space is used up. And then what? Your layer 1 that was supposed to be the most scalable or most throughput ever has gotten all this demand and now it can't cope anymore. And there isn't really, you can't just keep on adding layers forever. So, or making blocks bigger because then obviously you get more and more centralized. So it's going to be interesting to see how all these things play out. Yeah, so let's get maybe into a few of the community questions. So one of the, I think we already answered that one with the incentive plan. But yeah, maybe it's worth reiterating. So Kai Xuan on Discord asked, after the current incentive plan is completed, how do you ensure that the number of nodes running on the mainnet remains at a high level? Will there be a new node growth plan?
There's two sides to that, isn't there? So the first is what we've already talked about in the past, which is utility. So you're going to want to keep running your node so that you can make use of the utility that's going to exist on Minima. There's going to be some mini dApps available for testing, hopefully within this month, and there certainly will be more available to you when we get to mainnet. But we'll also be encouraging other developers, and some of you may be amongst us now, to build upon Minima also, and we'll be incentivizing around that. So you'll be wanting to run your node so you can make use of that utility. It's not just about the value transfer with Minima. But yes, also, as mentioned earlier on, we've got a plan for post TGE in terms of the incentive reward program. So we're going to give you the option to hold or cash out the tokens that you have at that point. For those of you that choose to hold, the rewards will be halved each quarter after TGE. And for those of you that cash out, you won't be able to earn any further rewards. So ultimately, you'll have a choice to make, whether to cash out and when to cash out. But the important thing for you there is for those of you that want to continue to earn, you can. And for those of you that want to cash out, you can whenever you want to. So between those two items there, we're looking at making sure the node count is healthy. And this, of course, is before we talk about any nodes that will come online as a result of the partnerships that we have coming up.
Yeah, Jasmine, do you have anything to add to that?
Oops, sorry, I was on mute. No, I don't think so. I mean, it's going to be the utility predominantly, and obviously Minima will be light enough also to fit on IoT devices. So it won't just be people running on their phones. I think we're going to see some really interesting use cases come.
Yeah, I actually have a washing machine that I can connect to the Wi-Fi. Maybe one day it could run Minima, and then we could pay, I don't know, the water company. Yeah, okay. Well, another trend that I have observed, and I think, yeah, maybe others as well, is definitely the growth of stablecoins. And stablecoins, like I think most people will think of things like Tether or USDC or Binance USD maybe. But what has recently happened is that we've seen more and more so-called algorithmic stablecoin. And also today, Tron just launched what they think is the most decentralized stablecoin. That is obviously open to your own judgment. So maybe let's start with what kind of different stablecoins exist. Jasmine.
Yeah, so just to kind of recap what stablecoin is, it's essentially a token on a layer one chain, and that's pegged to fiat currencies, for example, the dollar or pound. You can also have stablecoins that are pegged to different commodities, for example, gold, like PAX G. And they're useful when you want to avoid the volatility of cryptocurrencies. So if you're a trader and you want to get out of a trade before you think the price is going to fall, and they also just make it easier to transact in the blockchain space and to use DeFi protocols without having to exchange for real fiat or both for a banking system. And so you don't have to rely on banking system or you don't have to transact within banking hours. But obviously they're only useful if they can maintain their peg. So there are different types of stablecoins that use different mechanisms to maintain this peg and to keep the stablecoin as close to, for example, the dollar as possible. And the kind of top ones that we see being used are USDT, so Tether, and USDC, and these are both centralized stablecoins. So these are essentially kind of backed by a centralized entity that holds an equivalent fiat currency, or perhaps not fiat currency, but fiat equivalent like government bonds, and they issue the equivalent amount of tokens that they have. So it's supposed to be a one-to-one backing. But obviously, sure, lots of you know the issues that Tether are seeing with the lawsuits, and they're not really being clear on disclosing what assets they hold to back Tether. And they have obviously centralized solutions, so you are trusting that this entity has those. So then a different option is to use collateralized, so kind of crypto-backed collateralized stablecoins. And then, so instead of holding fiat, sorry, Naomi, did you want to jump in?
No.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm happy to explain collateralize as well, but go ahead.
Sure, go for it.
All right, so collateralized stablecoins basically means that people have to put up a collateral. So they put up their crypto and then they can create their stable coins. And these coins are stable because they are backed by crypto. The problem with them is that they are highly capital efficient. So let's say you wanted to take out $1,000 worth of DAI, which is like a DeFi stablecoin backed by Ether. You would have to deposit at least $2,000 worth of Ether into the protocol before you can take out 1,000. And obviously that's not really helpful if you wanted to use it as similar to a loan in the real world. But yeah, you can also just use these stable coins if you want to transact in DeFi and buy them on exchanges or decentralized exchanges. And then recently we've seen the rise of algorithmic stablecoins, which are basically just backed by their algorithm and different reserve currencies that are bought and sold to keep the stablecoin actually stable. And one example is Terra USD, so UST, which has managed to become like the third largest stablecoin by market cap. And I think one big reason is obviously that it gives people 19% yields if they lock it up. And economic incentives are always a strong way to motivate people in crypto. But yeah, I think it's quite interesting that we are now seeing every protocol coming up with their own algorithmic stablecoin, and we will see what happens eventually. But have either of you used stablecoins before? And if yes, for what? Luke?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I have. If I use, just there's two reasons I use it. Sometimes it's to pay for something that's a fixed price, like a contract type thing. So if I know I'm paying in crypto, but it's sort of through operating capital as an example, then I use a stable coin because that's just the easiest way to make sure I'm maintaining value, kind of doing what it says on the tin. And then the other reason that I use stable coins is if I want to reasonably maintain the value of whatever crypto I'm currently trading with. For example, if there's a real period of high volatility and I don't want to go through the trouble of withdrawing whatever small amount I've got in an exchange, I don't necessarily want to eat the volatility because I could end up with the wrong side of it. In fact, more often than not, I have done. So stablecoin enables me to actually, maintain the value that I have there ready for it when I come back to it later in the day.
Yeah. How about you, Jasmine?
Yeah, normally just when kind of exchanging between different cryptocurrencies, stablecoin is usually the kind of easiest pair to go between different cryptos. And I used to use them more when I was attempting to trade previously, but I've given that up. It's not the forte.
Yeah. I mean, I also mostly use them just to, as Luke said, get out of volatile trades and also quite a lot to put them into lending protocols and just try all these DeFi platforms and see what happens. Um, and yeah, also I think they're quite useful if you want to transfer money to people who are not in the same country. Um, so that's what I've used them for as well. When I was moving countries from Japan to London, it's really expensive to use PayPal to transfer your money. So, and yeah, as you might know, if you've ever used Western Union or any of the other services, they also charge you crazy amounts. So even if you go through a centralized exchange, it's still faster and cheaper, and at least you can see where your money is, and which you can't necessarily if you transfer with PayPal or your bank. Okay. Do you think there are any risks associated with these stablecoins, Jasmine?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think even obviously the centralized ones, there's such risk, but even with the algorithmic ones, they are kind of based on confidence as well. And if the price of the reserve currency drops significantly, then that can impact the peg. So
Yeah.
I
What
don't
about
think,
you? Oh,
yeah.
yeah, you were breaking up. Sorry. And you, Luke, what do you think is the biggest risk with the stablecoins?
I think sometimes the source of the underlying liquidity. Sometimes there's questions around that and the security of it. So perhaps there's been stories around where there's been questions of if you leave money with a particular stablecoin, that perhaps that liquidity might disappear along with your coin. But that's probably the thing that always kind of niggles in the back of my mind.
Yeah, I mean, these things can happen. And obviously, I mean, these algorithmic stablecoins, even with DAI, we've seen they had a Black Swan event, right? And they nearly lost that pack. So, all right, we have Paddy on stage again.
Sorry, I just wanted to have a little say about these stablecoin things. And what I wanted to say is that they're a temporary fix. So the truth is that we just need these stablecoins as we transition from the old world to the new world. The fact of the matter is that the end game here, let's say a decade, 2 decades from now, will be you not transacting in stablecoins because they'll be totally worthless, and you will actually be transacting in whatever the base currency of the coin that wins. So currently we can't do that because the market cap of these crypto coins is so tiny that the fluctuations are so big. Yeah, these coins have to be worth hundreds of trillions of dollars to actually be able to sustain the world economy. And when that day comes, what we will find is that the value of these coins will actually become stable. And what I mean is that you'll go to the shops and it will just be priced in Minima, or it'll just be priced in Bitcoin 0.0001. It will not be a conversion. The actual base unit of account will be the cryptocurrency, and the value of that currency as a whole will go up proportionally to the economic growth of the world. So if the world economic if the world's economic growth is 2 to 3%, what that will mean is that everything will go down in price by 2 to 3%. So firstly, these stable coins, I'm not a big, advocate. I don't really like the stable coins. I think they're sort of a band-aid as we try to move over. What you should really just be doing is transacting in the base currency. And so that's the first point I would say. And the second point is the collateralized stable coins are going to work much better than the algorithmic ones. And the reason that is that the algorithmic ones always work on some sort of artificial scarcity. As you were saying, Terra makes you lock it up. And the truth is that artificial scarcity is always about rent seeking. Yeah, they're always trying to make money. It's like, where's that 19% yield coming from? What's happening there? Who are they taking? That money, this is a zero-sum game. Where is that coming from? And so what actually happens in a decentralized system, what actually happens in a true, crypto economic system is that all the rent seekers will be kicked out. The efficiency of the market will kick in, and only the good products that offer, the better solutions that are better at doing something will win. And so, frankly, I'm going to have to give the algorithmic stable coins a 40-60 chance of survival. But the collateralized one, yeah, fine, they might work for now as we need them. But as for the algorithmic ones, they're all basically playing the game where they take it from one and give it to another. And actually that is going to be removed from the equation. In a decentralized system, rent seeking is incredibly hard. You can't actually do it. You actually have to offer something which is better than somebody else. That's what's so great about it. Yeah, the cream will rise to the top. So that's what I would say about them.
Would you say that the current financial system is an algorithmic stablecoin or a collateralized?
Algorithmic. It's totally debt-based. There's no collateral at all. It's just nonsense. They're just printing money out of thin air and just waving a hand and saying, you can trust us. That's exactly why we're in the position we're in now. So yeah, I would say the current system is, the gold-backed system was collateralized. Now we're not in a collateralized system. Yeah, which is exactly why all the metrics are breaking. Because we're finally getting to the point where we're getting sick of the rent seekers, and so all the equations are asymptotically growing.
Yeah. All right. Well, since you're already on stage, I think there's like a very interesting question in terms of security in our channel, and it is about curiosity around the potential attack vectors. What do you think are the potential attack vectors for Minima, and how do we mitigate them?
Yep, that's a great question. So we use proof of work, and proof of work means that we have to put energy into the system, and this allows us to determine consensus in a decentralized way. So the most obvious attack and the simplest to explain is that somebody simply tries to put in more energy into the system than we as a user base can put into it. This, I feel, will be a problem in the first years of Minima's existence. But there will come a stage where we simply become too large a city to be attacked. So a straight power attack is only a short-term cycle. Yeah, there is going to come a moment where we will be using a serious amount of power. When I talk about, proper security for the Minima network, I'm sort of looking at maybe 0.1% of the world's power. I mean, this is, a frankly ridiculously small amount of power when you're considering running your entire global value transfer infrastructure. If we could have that today, we would, you'd be a fool to not accept it. But once we reach those sort of levels, which will not only require the phone users of the world, it will require, cars and, IoT devices. As you said, your washing machine, your toaster could have a Minima chip and it will pay for the electricity it uses to toast the bread in real time over Omnia. This is the sort of future that we're trying to envisage here. So the straight power attack, I think, is a short-term attack which will be fixed once we just become big enough network to support that. I guess the other attack would be the state level, banning Minima, trying to stop us from doing. I think that's a very, very hard proposition, because as we see today, whenever the state gets involved and it tries to ban crypto, all that happens, you don't ban it, it just moves to the edges. It just moves somewhere else. And what we're going to see in future is that people are going to just move to the, to the freer states, to the freer governments, to the places that allow them to do what they want. That is where the economic growth will be, and eventually we'll just buy these other countries. Yeah, this is a battle of economics here, and so all you're doing is hindering yourself by not allowing, the people of your country to do what they want to do. So again, I see that as maybe a, political, sociological situation which will rectify itself, because the worse they are, the worse their countries will be, the worse the situation will become as people and talent and, all the intelligent people and the people who want to live freely will move to countries which allow them to do what they want. So that's also, shooting yourself in the foot. And otherwise, I would say, I mean, I have, I have fears for Minima, and when I think about the things that worry me about it, then I guess there's really three things that really bug me, that keep me awake at night. The first one is the user base. Yeah, we do need to be large. This doesn't work small. Yeah, the trade-off that Minima made to achieve its completely centralized nature is that we work at scale. We have to have a large user base, or this doesn't work.
Yeah, on that note,
Um,
is that where the 1 million number is coming from? Is there some mathematical explanation for it? Or is it just...
Yeah, I mean, yes, when we run the numbers and we try to work out how much power we can actually generate with 1 million users on the network, that's the sort of numbers we need to be able to, sustain a network. So, Visa says that 99% of transactions are less than, $99. So if we can sort of be thinking of doing $1,000 transactions per block, the thing about a proof of work network is that it's very simple. You wait longer, your transaction is deeper in the chain, which means more energy has been used to bury it, which means your transaction is more secure. Yeah, that's all. This isn't the case for proof of stake, by the way. Yeah, this is something that happens on proof of work. So we need to reach a point where people can, legitimately transact over the network in, on layer one. This isn't for the layer. This is different for layer two, but on layer one, you need to be transacting at speed, sort of minutes really, and be able to do most of your transactions. The trick with proof of work networks is you just have to wait longer, and the longer you wait, the more secure your coin, the transaction becomes. Yeah. So that, I would say, is probably my number one concern. Are we going to reach those numbers? My number concern, I suppose, would be, we worked very, very hard on Minima, and we've been using it at scale, and there's lots of users. But the truth is, there isn't a single piece of software in the world that has been released without a bug. And so, statistically speaking, the chances that there isn't a bug in Minima are zero. So the only thing I don't know is whether it's a small bug or a big bug. What I do know is when I find it and when it is found, I will fix it. But what I also know is that this is a very contentious space, and that whenever you try to do something, there is going to be those on one side and those on the other. I genuinely don't know how that's going to play out. What if the bug means that some people lose money and some people don't? What if the bug means, will the people who don't lose money want us to do a hard fork to fix it so that those who have lost money get it back? I know the answer to that question is going to be, it's going to get messy. And that worries me a little bit, So we're launching with Minima 1.0. We're currently on 0.10, 100. We're about to have 101. And, when we launch at mainnet, it will be 1.0. And I guess the thing that worries me is, will there be a 1.1? And how will that go? What kind of a storm will that create? I'm not really too sure about that.
We just have to wait and see and be prepared
Yeah.
mentally to whichever it is.
Yeah. And yeah, I'll leave it at that. Those are the sort of things that are sort of, that sort of keep me up at night. Are we going to get the users? Also, I suppose, we're a decentralized network. I don't rely on anybody. I don't have servers running in the space. So the third thing is, which I work very hard on, is optimization of the code. Can I get this code running efficiently enough so that it runs, correctly and properly on the myriad thousands of devices that Minima currently runs on? So I do not have the luxury of saying, yeah, I've got a server online, I'm an ETH box, I've got hundreds of gigabytes, I'm plugged into a universal power supply. I don't have to worry about any of that stuff. The efficiency of the protocol matters. Again, there is a solution to that. When we get Minima on a chip, hardware solutions are 10,000 times more efficient than the software solution. We're talking serious scale. We're talking serious numbers. It won't be a problem at all. So 10 years from now, if Minima hasn't, if Minima is still around, then I can fully see a solution to that problem. It's not like there isn't a solution to that, but that is something we need to be worrying about. That is something we work on constantly, trying to get the protocol to work faster and faster, more and more efficiently. Currently on my phone, I get it uses about 7 to 12% of the phone's power, which is totally fine. But the truth is, there's not enough, there's not enough transactions on the network for me to be stressing it. We're definitely going to be running some competitions to see if we can blow up the network in the next build.
So anybody wanting to DDoS Minima,
go. Well, you won't be able to DDoS us, but you will be able to, because that's
spam with transaction.
Yeah, because the DDoS attack is prevented by the burn, because it costs you money. So it's not actually a DDoS. I'm actually quite happy to include your transaction as long as you're going to burn more than the next person. There is no such thing really. The fee mechanism that Satoshi came up with actually prevents DDoS. It's not just the power that does that. It's the fee mechanism, the burn, that prevents distributed denial of service attacks. So yeah, those three things are really the ones that keep me awake at night. And those are the attack surface that I try to work on. As far as the state getting involved or somebody trying to, sorry, I'm ranting here, but as far as an attack goes, you're only going to use an attack which is cheaper than any of the other attacks.
Yeah.
And so when a country's sitting there thinking, okay, we're going to spend billions of, we're talking a lot of money here. If you wanted to divert serious percentages of the world's power into some sort of ASIC farm to try and reorganize a proof of work blockchain, you have to ask yourself whether it wouldn't just be cheaper to, send a hit squad round and put a gun to my head. I'm sure I've said this before. There are cheaper attacks to get the money off someone than attacking it in this fashion. And once the proof of work attack becomes more expensive than all the myriad of other attacks, that is when I would consider us actually secure.
Yeah, and I think it's maybe also reassuring that there hasn't really been a 51% on attack on Bitcoin. So we're going to be a lot bigger than that. So.
Yeah, absolutely. We don't see that. And also, I would say there have been 51% attacks on smaller chains, and it hasn't seemed to have affected them. It's not a destruction of the. It's not a destruction of the chain. You just have to brush yourself down, get up, and get on with it and move on with the next day.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you very much. That was incredibly insightful, and I think we've learned a lot about the attack vectors, and hopefully you don't have too many sleepless nights.
I haven't slept for 3 years, just so you know.
Okay. Cool. We don't want to know what you take. All right. So there was another question, which I think is really useful to answer as well. And it was from Liam in our Discord channel. And it's about when I try to get friends or family to install a node, they're concerned about what the app is really doing in the background. Does anyone have any successful methods of convincing people that Minima is not spyware, keylogging, or doing any other things in the background? Luke, What is your go-to sentence if people don't trust your judgment?
I honestly, when that's happened to me, it's been with family. So there is an element of trust there already. They trust what I'm telling them, but I always explain that it's running a background process, no difference to any application on their device. So if you got WhatsApp running in the background, nobody questions that WhatsApp's taking all their keystrokes. It's just there doing its thing, and that's the kind of direction I take with people. I appreciate, obviously, at the moment, we're asking people to download and install unsigned applications from the Play Store perspective, which has that added element of unusualness, perhaps, for most people. When you ask somebody who isn't an early adopter to do something. But I know that we're working to potentially get ourselves into the Play Store, which will I'm sure, help a lot in that regard.
Yeah, and I also see we have one request to speak, so maybe they have something to contribute. Lloydtrail06, you are now invited to join us. Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I never really worry about what the other apps are doing, but maybe that's just me being a bit naive. Well, not just maybe. How about you, Jasmine? Do you have any, well, ways to convince people that this app isn't doing anything that it's not supposed to?
I mean, you can always kind of go back to the fact that it is open source. I know that you're not going to expect your parents to go and check out the code, but it is there for anyone to see. I don't. I mean, other than what Lucas said, I think it's fair. Like, you don't really think about what other apps are doing either. So yeah.
Yeah. All right. We're nearing time, but I think there was one really interesting question as well. Let's close it off with that one. So what we're seeing at the moment, and which is quite interesting to see, is that transaction fees on Bitcoin have been super low in recent days. I'm not sure if you've noticed, but that is because Bitcoin is used as a store of value more than anything else. And this question is about what if people started using Minima, the coin, mostly as a store of value because it's sound money? Wouldn't this make the protocol less efficient over time because there's less liquid supply? Any thoughts on that? Maybe Luke?
I think that the liquidity is important, but if people are choosing to store value in it, then that increases scarcity, which increases value. So there is that. But ultimately, Minima is designed to balance itself out. So the coins themselves go to many, many, many decimal places. I'm sure that there are ways with it built. I know that there are ways built into Minima to protect against that. But it's an interesting question, and I hadn't noticed that with the Bitcoin fees actually.
Yeah, so if you want to send money cheap, you might want to send it on Bitcoin. But yeah, no, it has actually been going really low recently because nobody is using Bitcoin, right? There isn't much DeFi to do on Bitcoin, so people just hold on to their coins and don't move them. So there's no competition for sending transactions faster. Yeah, all right. Well, we are nearing 1 hour, so we're going to wrap it up here. We will share the recording soon as we have fixed it up. It will be on our YouTube channel, and we will, of course, share it on all our channels. Thank you very much for joining, everybody. And if you still have questions or things that we have not addressed, feel free to still use the Stage Questions channel. We're going to leave it open for a while, and even if we don't get back to you immediately, we will do our best to answer all the questions. And yeah, thank you very much, and looking forward to seeing more of your questions and more discussions around Minima, decentralization, and anything else, really. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. Just one last thing for me, actually. Those of you that stuck around to the end, if you send me a DM with the word banana, you'll get 1,000 XP.
Ooh, why banana?
Why not?
Okay, I have a banana NFT. All right, well, thank you, everyone, and have a lovely day.
Everyone.